But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. Before we begin, I do want to give a shout out to one of our partners, Eisenberg Network. I just found out that their nodes just went live. For those who don't know, they're trying to have like an AI, like create an AI system where they will use CPUs. So people like you and me on our on the computer or laptop that you have can participate and earn rewards. They are a project straight out of Waterloo. And I've been following them for a while, so I just want to give a shout out to our partner, and I encourage you all to check that out. I'm probably going to be downloading the app on my computer following this space. But yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome to the weekly Toronto DAO Space. I am so happy to have two amazing artists with me. So we have Andrea, and I'm sorry. How do you pronounce your name again, Maheen?
You're saying it right, Maheen.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Um, but yeah, why don't you briefly tell us about yourself and your artwork?
Oh, so okay. I mean, did you say Andrea or did you say my name? Because I don't want to like start when you said
Oh,
Andrea.
no, we can start with you. We can start with you.
No. Okay, no. Did you say Andrea? Because we can like start with Andrea.
I did not say a name.
Okay. I just heard it like. But hey, I just want to say hi to everyone who's here, and thank you for having me. So, about myself, my name is Maheen, and I go by the name Maheen Blues. I'm a digital artist, curator, and founder of Journey Studio, and my work is cinematic, often inspired by deep blue tones, emotions, and storytelling that feels both intimate and immersive. I also bring artists and audiences together through exhibitions and events that merge like art, music, and technology. That's something I started recently. Yeah, I'm pretty much involved in the Web3 community. I love getting people together. I mean, I feel like the right word is connector. I love being a connector, and I just love learning about, like technology and where it's headed. Of course, it started with art. So that's where I like to, say, like, I'm an artist first. That was the beginning of the journey that changed everything for me. And now it's more than that. But, it's like art will always be the first thing and the most valued thing in my journey. So that's pretty
Awesome.
much about me.
Awesome. How about you, Andrea?
I want to quote Maheen's infamous quote. It's about the journey, not the destination. I had to say that because that's her line. And I always make sure people know that that came from her. And so thank you again for having me. My name is Andrea. My artist alias is Crown and Palette. Like Maheen, we've been in this space for pretty well just as long. Around March 2021, which is it feels like light years ago. But I came into the space, as an artist first, as Maheen mentioned. But ultimately, one of my biggest mission is to make technology and creativity accessible for everyone. I like being that person where I can people can come to not one just make connections, but also build communities. And when I entered the space, it certainly wasn't what I originally like. It was completely different from what I imagined it to be. And I was just an Instagram artist at first, and then eventually, came here, and it kind of just blew up from there. I consider myself to be a digital collage artist, but I would maybe add generative AI into the mix as well. But originally, I did not always work with AI in the beginning, and now it is one of the um, primary tools that I use within my current tech stack. And I'm excited when we get into the conversation about the fact that AI has kind of made its way into the art scene, because I definitely have my own perspective and view on that. And besides that, I was also a community lead for a startup for a number of years that approached me when I entered the space back at that time. And I did a lot of community building work, attended panels, spoken at events to just talk about how bringing our art on chain can really change lives and ultimately has built relationships that are long lasting that I've not, there's no way I could have built to build the career that I have or the network or connections I have without being in this space. So thanks again for having me, and I'm excited to talk more about the different questions you have for us, because Maheen and I are very different in terms of our scope of medium, but we ultimately have the same mission in mind, and we just do things differently, but still is, again, we're all on the same path and we're all on the same goals at the end of the day.
I'm
Awesome,
sorry to
awesome.
interrupt, but I need to let Matthew know that his voice is a little bit low, so please fix that. Thank you.
How's that? I just found out that the mic was jiggled loose, so I think I was talking on my webcam mic.
Oh, okay, now it's better. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it was it had come undone. I just investigated that. Sorry about that. This is the importance of a mic. A webcam mic is just not great, and the webcam was substantially more expensive than the mic too. That's what's funny. Yeah. So about Web3, like I often find the art scene in Web3 and the art scene in the traditional art scene like vastly different. So what drew you both to the Web3 scene?
Like you're saying the art scene is different in the real world versus the Web3 space?
Yes. So I guess like from my perspective, I'm finding like the artwork itself is vastly different. Of course, you have like the clubs with like Bored Apes and like the traditional art scene. I've never heard of such a thing. I don't even know if it's possible to duplicate such a thing with that. So I guess I've often figured like there's some artists who started off in Web3, and then there's people who make the jump to Web3. Like what made you make the jump to Web3? I guess would be my question.
Oh yeah, so I was basically on Twitter way before the NFT wave came in, and I was just sharing my photography and edits at that time. And I think I wasn't a big account, but I used to get like good retweets and stuff, and that made me just feel good that my art is being appreciated. And I was used to follow like couple of big artists with big following, and then out of nowhere I just saw that they're selling their art for 1 Ethereum, 2 Ethereum, and I'm like, what's going on? So I was aware about what's going on. I was just like n- not prepared as they were, because they must have realized it or acknowledged it before me. So the idea was just to experiment and see if it works out. But it took me a while to kind of like put out my collection. I had to think about the theme, and like I wanted to make it like a proper thing and just not randomly start minting my work. So I feel like I was in the space studying, and I was like observing and looking at other artists who were doing similar things. And I never saw it as a thing like Web3 art is different, or real world art is different. I just see it as a similar thing. I feel like it's just your approach that is different. But with Web3, I feel like because I went to an art school and I studied, and the process was quite similar, like coming with the idea to solve problems and like then presenting it to a jury and to your classmates. So the idea was very similar, right? Like coming with the topic or a theme for your collection and then presenting it and talking about it, what it is. So for me, it was very similar to that, and I like that because it's like proper and taking it very seriously. So it just worked out.
Nice. How about yourself, Andrea?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, like Maheen, similarly, I wasn't on Twitter like her from the beginning. When people said, "Oh, we should all enter this world of blockchain and minting our art on chain," I was like, I don't even know. First of all, don't even know what the heck that means. Did not know what blockchain was. Didn't know what. I didn't know anything about it. But given that I had a large community on Instagram, a lot of them decided to just take that leap, and they're like, well, why not? Like, we have nothing really to lose, right? But to Maheen's point as well, is that there are some similarities, and of course there's some differences, but ultimately it's the technology that's different, right? We're utilizing technology in a way where we can share our work and also to have more autonomy over, having the rights of as an artist, right? So looking at IP. So it's a different mindset and a different technology to be able to put our art in the global market. And so I was like, well, why wouldn't I want to try to expose myself, allow myself to have better exposure to different collectors and groups of people who have never seen my art before. So to me at the time, it just made sense to me. Plus, I'm a techie. Like I have a degree in computer science. So for me, it's
Wow.
like I can figure this out. Like, I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure I can figure it out. And I think it was just the excitement behind it that everyone was just super excited to try something new. And even though a lot of us were the guinea pigs, I would say, at that time, back in the wave of 2021, a lot of us didn't have the tools like we do now. Like even just using Manifold to build our smart contracts, like we didn't have that when we first started. I didn't even understand what it meant to mint my work on a shared contract, right? So I think again, a lot of us weren't. We didn't ask too many. We asked a lot of questions, but we were just like, this is just so freaking cool. They're all coming together, and so that made me take the leap into this world, and it just kind of took off from there, right? But yeah, I would say that's the initial like the biggest reason I entered this world.
And I have to ask both of you, do you question some of the artwork being put out there? Like I love to point to the rock that, for example, that was like a really basic picture of a rock that went for like over six figures. Does that sometimes make you question this space, or you think that's just an awesome part of it?
I feel it's the same way in the real world as well when the duct tape thing sold for millions, right? So it's not exactly that different. It's just like people can buy whatever they want. So we have examples in both, the Web3 world and the other world, which is like the digital art world or the physical art world. So yeah, we have examples like that outside of Web3 as well. So they're extremes in both ends, and we just like we just try not to focus there because of reasons. I don't know. I don't know. What Andrea, what do you have to say about it?
I think it's very subjective, right? But I mean, ultimately, people are going to use the technology in a way that, to them, if that's how they want to utilize the technology, and it gets the goal is to make money, or like it really comes down to just like it's really is subjective at the end of the day. Personally, it's not my taste, and it's not something I would ever invest in. But for some, it could be the hype. It could be, everyone has a different motivation for why they do something or why they're going to purchase something. So it's similarly as what like Maheen mentioned, like this stuff happens in the real world too, outside of, on chain, anything that's minted on chain, right? So I may not understand fully why people do this kind of thing. It's just not something that, like Maheen said, we don't pay attention to it, right? Unfortunately, there are, a lot of the hype or the trends that happen take away from, us artists ourselves who put a lot of vulnerability and intentionality into everything we create. And so why focus on their lane when we should just be focusing on our own, right? So I have nothing much to say about it. It's just I just choose not to pay attention to it.
I can't remember. There's this movie. I can't remember the name of it though. But basically, it was they were using a failed art gallery as a place for money laundering, and they're just like, because art was subjective, no one would question if this like really awful artwork went for like a lot of money. And so they just got this like hitman be like, we need you to paint something. He's like, I'm not an artist. I'm like, just paint. We don't care. And so he would just paint random stuff, and uh, they would the art gallery would quote unquote sell this artwork to the like this criminal organization and just be a way to clean the money. And the hype around this like artist who was just this headman painting whatever, selling tons of pieces for like a lot of money, like real art collectors were actually trying to buy it and were outbidding like the criminal organization to get the actual pieces and stuff. It's an interesting movie, and I feel like that kind of relates to what you were both saying.
Like anything, right? there are different mechanisms. There's definitely different ways of, you know, of how creative people can get with money laundering, right? That applies in the real world too, right? So again, it's like there's some similarities to both of these worlds, right? They just manifest, or they're just being expressed, or to being publicized. They may seem different, but they're really not, right? But people are always going to find a way to some degree. But unfortunately, you know, it does again take away from the intentionality that we as artists put into our work, and it gives it a bad name, unfortunately. But again, you know, this is something like, do we have control over what everyone else is going to do? No, but I have in control of what I put out there and what I'm building, right? So let's set that example for everyone. But we cannot like, we can't stop from any of that happening, right? But that's just my take on it.
Of course, of course. And Maria, you mentioned prices already, so we'll start with you with this next question. How you are noticing like, oh, this piece is going for like 2 ETH. And at the time, ETH was around the price it was now. So I noticed on your marketplace that you do have like your prices, and so how do you come up with these prices? How do you value your own artwork?
So yeah, I feel like it's still about the journey. When I started as an NFT artist, I think I was literally really behind a lot of like photographers or artists who figured it out, and like they were working with galleries, or they've been exhibited in certain galleries. So for me, I was nowhere. And I wanted to like basically it's about how much time I'm spending also making a piece and all of that. I feel like in the beginning it was more about like how, like in the beginning it was about how others are pricing who are in the same journey as me, like who are starting at the same time. But I also consider that, you know with as I was growing, and as I was making more art and selling more art, I feel like I focus more on the story behind my art, because it's a personal journey for me, my art pieces and everything. And if it was taking me time to make something, because I do a lot of editing and I did a lot of 3D work as well, so I was pricing it a little bit higher. So I feel like, it's about where you are in your journey. And as an artist, I value like my collectors as well, because where they were meeting me at that point as well. So it's like it's been very different, and pricing has been one of the major concerns for all of us, because you can't just come in and on day one and be like, I'm placing my art for 1 ETH, when nobody has seen your work, nobody is familiar with your work, and nobody knows what you do, and like how active have you've been and all of that. But then the same strategy worked for artists who've been established outside the Web3 space, and they sold at 1 ETH and all of that. So I feel like it's not even about the journey in Web3, but like your journey as an artist in general, and the confidence you have and the connections you've made, and just knowing the value of your work. I feel like that was a journey for me. And when I realized that, I could like price my work the way I felt like it deserves. So it just was like, again, a journey for me to price my work that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I can definitely see, because I'm not really into the NFT space. I only have one NFT that was given to me for free, but I can definitely see a scenario where there's like two spectrums. You've got the get rich quick ones that are like, I want 5 ETH, and then there's the struggling ones that are like, I want 0.5% of an ETH, because they just want their art to be sold, and both are not sustainable. And you have to find that you have a sweet spot where you're setting a price that you think it's worth, right?
Yeah, it's like you should know the market, like when NFTs were selling at 2000 in 2021 and 2022. So it was like there were collectors who would collect at that price, right? So people could sell at that price, but right now it's slow because there are only few collectors. And I feel like it's about also like the quality of your work and how much time you're spending. So for me, I focus on the quality more than quantity. Like you wouldn't see a lot of work in my collection. I just literally produce like one artwork in 1 month, or like two in 1 month, when because it has to come to me. I can't force art or creativity. So for me, I can price it like, let's say reasonably. And also, I feel like it's also important where you're living, because Canada, for example, is more expensive than living in Iran, and other places. So I can understand if I'm placing my art a little bit more expensive, because even getting the medium of to make that art, if I'm doing it digitally, even like that can cost more than someone in different, like Middle East or South Asia. So things like that also, I feel like, are important to consider.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Andrea? What's your like process?
Definitely going to piggyback off of Maheen for this. It's a very similar process and workflow that I go over when I think of pricing. And the thing is, it's so easy to look at others and be like, well, again, art is very subjective, right? So for someone who may value, say, my art or Raheen's art, and they look at the price, they're gonna know that, like, yeah, I love their art. I'm willing to pay that price, but not everyone's gonna think that way, right? So it's so easy to feel misguided when it comes to what you set your prices are. So the best advice, or at least what I try to remind myself, is like to kind of cut out the noise. Only you know what your value is and what the price and how you want to price it accordingly. Like no one else can really tell you that. Now, does there have to be a strategy in place of the pricing? I think there has to be. Not just, looking at the value. Like there's so many factors, there's so many different layers you need to look at, as Maheen already eloquently has expressed and has shared with all of us. um but how we go about each of those factors is going to look different, right? So mindfully thinking about your collectors, like if you were pricing your work at specific pricing points, and you're not going to sell work for something that's lower, right? You have to keep in mind, your collectors feel about that as well. And but it's also looking in general at who is your collector base? Who are those people? Right? Like I don't want anyone just to collect my work. As much as we all love making sales, that's great. But at least for me, like art is not my main point of income. So I can afford to be a little bit pickier, or at least be a little bit more patient with making sales, right? I want collectors to collect my work and love my art. They really connected with it. And they're not going to think twice about price. So they're not going to be like, oh, well, I purchased one ETH from her one time, and now she's selling something for less than 0.25. Like, I want a collector base that's not going to care about that, right? Like, I want them to buy the art because they love it and not to think beyond that. But it takes a lot of research, takes a lot of time and effort to understand your collector base, and how can you market yourself appropriately so that you have that collector base. It's not easy, given that if there is financial constraints, then sometimes we may have to change our strategy. But I think strategy can be adjusted over time. But that's just my take on it.
Well, like I always say that because some people asked me about NFTs in those crazy days. I told them I didn't really know anything about it. But I would say if you found like a digital artwork that you liked that was an NFT, and you were willing, and it was at a price that you liked, and that you were willing to, that plus the digital frame, and you hang it up, and whatever that total amount of investment in is worth it to you, like a traditional piece of artwork, I'd say go for it. If they were buying it for like 1 ETH, hoping they could sell it for 200 ETH, then I would tell them that's not a good idea. But yeah, so like, do either of you have a piece of artwork that you like, that you made? Do you have a favorite piece, I should say?
Yeah, I feel like I I don't know, I'm biased about my art, so I love everything. But I feel like one of the artworks that really did well for me as an edition, and it wasn't even placed high, or like very like expensive. It was, I think, I put out the edition for open edition for 0.02, and it was like the window art where like you can see the window and like two people apart, and the message was very deep. I feel like a lot of people connected with it, and it did really well in terms of how people received it, and the community showed a lot of support. And I was happy because not did it aesthetically look nice, but I feel like the emotion connected with a lot of people. And I got a really nice feedback from people, like how it made them feel, and why they kind of wanted to mint that work. Um, yeah, so I think that is one of my best pieces. I even got it printed and have it in my house because it really was a special piece, because it was like what I was going through, and I could express myself through art. Yeah, apart from that, skill wise, I've done a lot of like other 3D artworks, like for super rare and all of that. But I feel like that one was an open edition, and that one was mostly like about feelings and connection, and I could find like that is my style, like window art and like showing emotions through windows and buildings. So I found my style, and I found like this is something I enjoy doing the most. And people started recognizing my art through it. They just look at windows and they go like, okay, this is Maheen's art. So it became a thing, I guess. So that was important for me.
Oh, how could you not like that though? Sort of becomes your identity, right?
Yes, people, like, I remember when I went to NFT NYC for the first time and I met all the artists I was talking to. They were like, we look at windows and we think of your art now because of that. And I was like, wow, I feel like that is a bigger achievement than even getting sales or anything. So I feel like that was important in the journey.
How about you, Andrea? Do you have a favorite piece?
I do. Actually, piece may not be the right word. It's collection,
Fair enough.
actually. So, and I know which one Maheen is talking about because I own an edition. And I own one of her one-of-ones as well. I own a lot of Maheen's work, actually. I can't get enough of it. But the collection that's my favorite was similar to what Maheen said, was also one of the most popular collections I dropped. Um, but I would think the first reason why it is my favorite is not because of what others thought of it, but it's because of how I feel every time I look at it. So the collection was called Overdrive. It was one of my self-portrait collections that I dropped. It's a little different from what I typically do with my digital collage work. But it was a way for me to express myself in a different way. And the funny thing is, this shoot that I did with my photographer, who, to be mindful, of course, I let others know for transparency purposes that when I hire photographers, they know exactly what I'm doing with the work, and I purchase the commercial rights so that they know that, hey, I might be playing around with AI with it, or hey, I might be using it to sell it, blah, blah, blah. It's very important to have established those relationships when you're working and collaborating with other people. So he's amazing. He's an Ottawa-based photographer. And we love doing projects together because he gets to do stuff with me that he normally doesn't get to do with other clients. So it's just like a fun little thing we do. And so for this shoot, I had no idea what I was going to wear. I had no idea how I was going to pose, nothing. I decided that I'm not going to think this one through. I'm just going to do it. And then when I look at the photographs after, I know exactly what to do with them after. And because I didn't have like this thought process, like I just went in just be like, I'm just going to be me. It turned out to be one of the best collections I ever did. And it was a way, the theme behind it, like the name Overdrive, when you think about the word, at the time I was a workaholic. I was working full time. I was working for a startup in Web3, and I was building my crown and pellet brand at the same time. Don't recommend doing three things at once. But I was always in this perpetual state of overdrive, and I wanted people to see what that felt like. So on the left side of the photographs is in color, on the right side was black and white, and there was a motion blur between the two. So it's almost like I'm in two places at once, but not really being fully present. And so that was to me, I still look at it, I'm like, yeah, shit, like that was my life at one point. Would I recommend doing it again? No. But did I learn a lot from that whole experience, yes. And I can look back and be like, all that hard work I put in at that time in this state of overdrive actually did propel me forward in my career, my personal life, etc. So it just allows me to do like a full circle every time I look at it. And one more additional thing, I'm actually going to be published in a book. It's my second time being published.
Congrats.
And thank you. And the portrait that they're using for my story is one of the photographs from that collection. So even though I made it a couple years ago, it's still showing up a lot when it comes to sharing my projects.
I also love the collab you did with Barb's. Like, she's another artist, and she does 3D art and all of the fashion work. And I think Andrea and her did a collab, and it was a curation. I did a curation for that. I don't remember if that was that piece, but that piece I remember, it's like one of my favorites because I could see two styles and two artists together, and I feel like the collaboration between two artists was the best thing that happened to the NFT space, because it brought like artists together, and yeah, it was very creative.
That sounds
Yeah, she built 3D fashion garments and put 2D photography, right? So like in the images that I gave her, I was wearing like pretty much next to nothing so that she can put 3D fashion garments on top and you can't tell by looking at it. So yeah, like Maheen said, it's like being in this space allowed us to explore different areas and explore in two different mediums that normally don't not traditionally go together, but we made it happen. So the experimentation side of things and just trying something new and be like, why not? Why not try this? Right. So thanks, Maheen, for bringing that up because it's also one of my favorites I ever did.
I feel like the theme here is that the story behind the artwork is actually 1,000 times more important than the actual finished piece. That's sort of what I'm getting from both of you. Is that like a correct statement? Correct statement. Sorry, sometimes my mouth stops working.
Yeah, because a lot of collectors are collecting from you as a brand, and they get to know you better with storytelling, I guess. Because anyone can come with a collection any day, and then you just go like, what is this? But if you know the story, then you know the artist and their consistency and their hard work and their journey, then you want to support them, right? It's just like how you build relationships outside as well. So something like that happened, and a lot of collectors were like, we're not collecting from we're not collecting an art piece, we're just collecting and helping art, like the artists. So that became a thing, and I think everyone acknowledged it, and everyone sort of started doing more storytelling than before, and it became a thing.
And I guess this next part, it's sometimes controversial, sometimes not. What's your opinion on like AI making its way into the art scene? Because I know some, like we spoke with an artist a couple weeks ago who was using it for her own artwork, but like as a compliment. But you have people that are just now being also lazy and just, making, if they're a YouTuber, they'll just make a, what do you call it? The thumbnail will just be completely AI art generated and stuff like that. So what's your take on AI in art?
I think Andrea should go first because she does a lot of AI. Like, we've had long conversations and spaces about that too. But I would say let her go first because she knows more than me about these things. But I'll definitely go after her.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Maheen's, you've dabbled a little bit of AI too, right? But so that's the thing. There's going to be different points of view on this. And yes, it could be controversial, but it doesn't have to be, right? I think it's just being mindful and doing our research. So the way I'm going to go about answering this is kind of starting up like when I started playing with AI, which was back in the fall of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So around that time, I started seeing a surge of more artists here in the space or within the communities that I'm in. More and more, we're starting to use Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion, etc. Right? And it was a lot of excitement, but at the same time, there was a lot of skepticism, which is quite normal when it comes to like any point in art history where there's something new coming. People are like, whoa, 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 what? Let's pump the brakes a bit. I want to observe this, and I want to it depends on how you go about change, right? Like I'm somebody that will do my own research experimentation before I come up with an opinion or consensus on something, but that's just me. Not everyone operates like that. So I decided I'm not going to just assume it's bad. I'm going to play with it. I'm going to experiment and research as much as I can. So when I started doing that, I was cautious, but started asking big questions, right? Like, because a lot of the time, or at least the big topic is on the ethical AI, right? At least that's just my point of view. So when we're talking about ethics, we're talking about originality. Like you kind of pointed to that, to that point that some or may look at as like, well, someone's being lazy, right? No, I think it really comes down to it's very subjective. I think it comes down to what is your definition of art? And I think when AI came into the picture, it kind of brought that question up, like it heightened that question so much so that it's like, for some folks, like I was getting some hate. Like I won't lie, I definitely got some hate on Twitter. When I was doing AI challenges, for example, like Claire Silver is a great AI artist and she does a lot of challenges. And, I've had people comment underneath being like, like you don't draw, you don't paint, so like you're not a real artist. And it's like, well, first of all, that's hurtful. Secondly, I said, you're entitled to your opinion, you're entitled to your own perspective of what you think art is, but you can't put that into a box. That's not fair, right? Subjectively, everyone's going to have their own definition of art, and I think to be more mindful of that and to be more respectful of each other's opinions and perspectives, like being open-minded but not think that there's one way to do something. Now, if we're talking about the ethical side of things, sure enough, I can empathize and understand why artists are pissed off. I get it. A lot of the AI tools are scraping a lot of art off the internet without permission, which is, it's no bueno, right? I get it. And that includes my own too, right? But at the same time, the way I try to approach this is, well, what are my belief systems and what are my values? Can I come up with a unique way or approach of how I'm going to experiment or use AI within my own creative workflow that works for me, not someone else, but works for me, right? So, for example, I train my own models. I do a lot of manual curation. I organize mood boards. I combine a crap ton of AI tools. Like, I don't just have one tool in my stack, right? I use a lot and I remix the crap out of everything. Within my own models, I have my own portraiture photography in there. So I'm training my models off of my own portraiture, right? So to me, this is my unique approach of how I tackle the ethical side of things. But at the same time, I'm still allowing myself to be experimenting because that's the thing. There's so much. I'm seeing more and more people uncovering new styles. They're finding new connections with people they never had before. They're breaking boundaries. Like honestly, it's a very personal, vulnerable topic. But I think the more that we can be open-minded to the fact that everyone's going to do it differently, I think it's going to be and be more compassionate about that. Like I can't expect someone to do it the same way as me, and I don't want them to either because this is my way, right? This is my creative way of how I go about using AI in that sense, right? So again, like looking at your own values and belief systems and being open to different perspectives and developing that process that works for you, I think ultimately is what is key to really think about. Now, can we stop the fact that these AI tools have already scraped the internet? No, we can't, but we can at least be an advocate for like, this is being transparent, about how I go about my process and allowing people to see that like there are ways that you can work around it by still abiding to your ethical beliefs and values, right? But we can't put ourselves into a box. It's that just limits creativity. That limits, again, just creativity is a very subjective thing. So giving the open space and capacity for people to figure out a way that works best for them, I think is something to keep in mind.
Wow, it's very informative, and I never saw it that way. It's a different perspective because, like I said, it might not be popular with some, and it sounds like you've gotten some heat, and I am sorry about that. No one should get heat for that, but I do agree. I think if we use it as a tool, it could really benefit at least a lot of industries, including the art one. And Maheen, do you have an opinion as well?
Yeah, so basically I see AI as a tool, right? Like in the same way, when I use Photoshop to edit my photographs or Lightroom, I feel like that is also a bit of AI for conventional artists or the ones who paint, physically. So it's like, different stories, different. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like it's not about the tool; it's about how you're using it and how smart you are and how creative you are to be able to use those tools. Because not everyone will be able to do that, even with AI. And there were too many AI artists who just like posted whatever they thought was like like easy AI, like not spending much time, and we could tell the difference between them and the artists who spend time making, you know spending hours creating the piece. And even then they take it to Photoshop and others to like make it their own. Delta, for example, is one of the successful artists in the space, and he does that, right? Delta Sauce, he does AI and he's so accepted in the community. So again, like I feel like the AI tools outside art as well, the people who are using it in their jobs, in the other professional work that they do, I feel like it's not about them using the tool as much as it's about what results they're giving and how it's helping others or the companies they're working for right now. So in the same way, if you get to express yourself or your whatever your art is about or your storytelling is, with that tool, and you are consistent and you have a style that people recognize, then it works out. But for me, it's about how artists use it rather than fearing it, right? It's about there were artists who were like totally against it. And then I feel like that comes from a place of insecurity, and you should never feel that way, and you should do whatever you feel like works for you. The only wrong part is like, putting others down for doing that, because it's not cheating if you're telling others that you are using a tool to make whatever you're doing. Cheating is when you are lying about your process. That is more important, I feel. So there were artists who were doing that. They would use AI and they would just lie about the process. But then there were honest artists who used it and they were very much open about how they made their artwork, and we respected them. So it's about the honesty, clarity, and how you're doing something rather than how it's done, I feel.
Yeah, those are all both great insights. We're gonna skip the next question because we're running out of time, and I know Maheen is about to bolt to her location. I just want to ask you one last question. What do you think the Toronto community can do more to support artists? Maheen, we'll go with you just in case you have to go.
Yeah, Toronto community, I feel like just hosting more events and like just talking about art, I feel, and making it a like a big deal, not just like how mostly in events it's just on the side, on the digital screen, and nobody cares what it is, and people just don't know how hard it is to even putting your work on the blockchain. And anyone who's done it, firstly, like, it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of thought process. You have to learn about technology, setting up your wallet, and like all of those things takes hours and hours of time. And anyone who has done that and stayed till now, like anyone who's still doing that, is very honest and very consistent and very hardworking with what they do. So I feel like the ones who are still doing that or still have their work on the blockchain, they should be given some acknowledgement, because it's like it is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time to do what we did. So I feel like just having these conversations the way we are having it right now, I truly appreciate Toronto DAO for doing that.
Thank you.
Because yeah, because the best events are the one where you have creativity, you have technology, you have other things. Because if you show interest in what I do, I would also love to be part of what you're building, right? It goes both ways. And I feel like, especially in the tech world, in these days, I've attended like mostly Futurist, Consensus, and so many of these events. and tech is like the major, topic of conversation, which is great because it is important. But then you have to understand that art and other things are also part of this. Like, it makes it better, it makes it more interesting, I feel. And yeah, I feel like just talking about these things and maybe having like a artist to highlight for the week where we can like showcase their work, any artist, or just like someone to talk about what they do and like just helping them out in any sort of way, that would be great. And yeah, I think those events are more successful because people see like it's coming from the place of genuine love and concern, rather than just like getting people together and sell your products and your tech and all of that, which is more transactional. And this is like building a relationship which comes from feeling and emotion, and that's also very important. So just doing things like that, getting the community together and respecting artists, I think is the right way to go about it. But you guys would know better as well. Like, you guys have been doing this for a long time. So I would ask you, in fact, what do you think you should do for artists?
Just off the top of my head, I was thinking like even if our events are not art based, it couldn't hurt to invite some artists to showcase their work at these events, as long if they were willing to share. But this is not something we've discussed, and yeah, this is something off the top of my head. What about you, Andrea? You can talk about Ottawa if you want.
Yeah, I'm glad that what Maheen went first, given that she's living in Toronto and she's able to explore more of the events that are happening within the city compared to me. Speaking from where Ottawa's at, right? If we're gonna make a comparison between the two cities, that Toronto is ahead with is having more events specific to digital art. Um, because in Ottawa, we are so behind on that, and then maybe we can blame it a little bit on the fact that it is a government city, and things are done in a very traditional way. Even at Ottawa Art Gallery, for example, OAG, do I hear about digital art exhibitions happening there? Not really. Like, if I were to just search on Eventbrite or Luma in the Ottawa area to look for digital art, not really a thing. Heck, even Maheen, you know who Ipman is, right? Ipman is like a legend in digital art, and he's from Ottawa, and he's in the Web3 Ottawa community with me. And, he's worked internationally, and he's even doing a residency at the library here in Ottawa. So, with that in mind, right, it's like you would think that we would have more of those opportunities for digital art in the city, given that we do have such talented people, but that's just not a thing. So I hope that Ottawa can catch up to where Toronto is when it comes to digital art specific events. Now, do I think that Toronto could also, improve in that area too? Of course, right? Like, if we were going to compare Toronto, for example, to Europe, right? There are many parts of Europe that are so ahead of the game when it comes to digital art events and having more specific festivals to accessible spaces where artists can learn and grow and share with each other when it comes to building a vibrant and supportive scene when it comes to digital art, right? The traditional art, of course, is still looked upon differently than digital art, and I think that will take time, right? But if we can continue to, here in Toronto, have more opportunities for digital art and maybe even for block, like to have on chain, anything in that area could help, because that's going to bring more exposure, and hopefully more cities like Ottawa can kind of follow suit. And Montreal is also up there as well. I know they have an NFT digital gallery at I forget the location name, but and that's funny actually. I volunteer for a design club in Ottawa, and one person in the audience at our previous event that happened like a couple weeks ago said, like, like, why can't Ottawa be like Montreal? And it was like, well, why would we want to be like another city? Like, do we want to have the similar opportunities in each of the cities, but we don't have to be the same, right? Isn't that the point, is to be unique in our own way, but still have the equal amount of opportunity no matter where you go, right? So I think Toronto's doing a great job when it comes to that. I think there's always room for improvement there. But ultimately, it's just creating a space or creating events where more people can be more accepting of digital art. I think is what's really going to benefit artists, in my opinion.
Well, both great answers, and from two different city perspective. And I agree with you. Like, why become another city? You should improve your own city rather than copy somebody else's. You know, I hate it when people compare Toronto to New York, for example. It's like not that like New York is better or worse, but it's just like they're different cities. It doesn't help that like the movie industry uses us as a no frills New York.
I mean, New York has spaces for artists to just come and sit and like make art, like, we have for, let's say, in different communities here. So it's like you can't compare. And obviously, if artists are sitting together, they're going to create better art, and they have more opportunities. And when the NFT wave, when NFT art was at its peak in 2021-22, I remember those artists because some of them are my friends, and they had like a proper, infrastructure and proper opportunities and better opportunities, to be honest. And they were like easily showcased in Times Square and all of that. So it really helps, and you can't compare. But I feel like if you're consistent, you can obviously make it far. And yeah, Toronto is doing its best. It's just like that's all we have right now, and that's all we can, they can offer us. So
Yeah, we all need to do better, but I like your ideas, and maybe it's something Toronto DAO can implement in the future. But we're out of time. This has been like fantastic. We even went a couple minutes late. You two were excellent, and I learned a lot. Thank you so much for joining us. For those who are new, because I saw a lot of new faces listening in, thank you so much. I only ask that you don't forget to follow Toronto DAO and keep an eye out for our later other spaces and our future events, including the one we have upcoming on October 8th. But yeah, thank you again, and I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend and a fantastic rest of the week ahead until our next space. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
thank you for having us. Have a great day, everyone. Thank
Have
you
a
for
great day.